The civil rights movement of the 1950s and 60s was a long time coming and a pivotal moment in our nation's history. The first step of racial equality was with the Emancipation Proclamation in 1863, where President Abraham Lincoln declared that all persons held as slaves within any state or designated part of a state, the people whereof shall then be in rebellion against the United States, shall be then, thenceforward, and forever free. The fight for equality has been and still is very prominent in America. The Little Rock Nine was one of the major little-known events during the fight for equal rights under the law. Now, I say little-known event because I don't recall learning too much about this in school before attending college. What I did know was that the Supreme Court case Brown v. Board of Education of Topeka, Kansas is what made the Little Rock Nine possible. According to our Doing Race textbook, authors Paula Moya and Hazel Rose Marcus stated that this ruling invoked the 14th Amendment. The Supreme Court declared that separate schools were inherently unequal and that they denied black children equal educational opportunities. I talked with my college history professor, Dr. Michael Carver, about his expectations of his students regarding their knowledge on the Little Rock Nine.
I generally don't have much in the way of expectations when it comes to the Little Rock Nine, and that's primarily because the events in Little Rock are caught between two of the seminal events in the civil rights era. You have the Brown versus Board of Education of Topeka, Kansas, Supreme Court decision in 1954, which then sets into motion what happens in Little Rock a few years later. And then you have the rise to prominence of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. So students, I have found, will often be familiar with those two events that bookend the Little Rock Nine, but they don't have much of a sense of exactly what happened in Little Rock in 1957. They may have seen images of the students being escorted by soldiers, so they may have some kind of visual recollection, but not necessarily the specifics of that particular event.
Dr. Carver feels very strongly about the Little Rock Nine being taught in high school.
I think it absolutely should be taught. It only really works if the students are relatively well versed in the Reconstruction era, because so little changes from the end of Reconstruction to the post-war era, so the period after World War II. So I think it's really important to understand how deeply embedded these institutions were, to the point where so many Southerners as well as Northerners just kind of accepted it as part of the American landscape. So certainly it's important to stress that people tend to lose sight of how hard it can be to change laws, change cultural norms if they've been widely accepted, reflexively accepted over such a long period of time. So really sort of saying, well, you come out of the Civil War, the slaves have been freed, which is all well and good, but what about the expectations following emancipation? What about land ownership? What about access to education? What about being able to just live in a neighborhood without being marginalized or persecuted? As far as understanding why we have these ongoing problems with race in this country, that we need to know that generation after generation of African Americans, for various reasons and through various ways, have been denied the ability to even coexist with people who are not like them, so white Americans.
I tend to agree with him that it is important to learn about every aspect of the civil rights movement, more so than what we were taught. Especially in the current climate of our nation, learning the details of our history is vital to keep moving in the right direction. I feel that we should be taught in more detail about the Brown versus Board of Education and how it spearheaded the Little Rock Nine to be able to even attend an all-white school. I also believe it is important to understand how the government, both local and at the federal level, handled the situation involving the Little Rock Nine. Upon researching lesson plans online, I found the National Park Service has a list of lesson plans and teacher guides through 12th grade. Looking through the site, as you see here, gives great ideas regarding the lessons that should be taught. Lesson 1 goes into detail about the events leading up to the Little Rock Nine walking into Little Rock Central High School along with what followed. What I also like about this website is that each lesson gives you different ways of teaching this topic. This particular one shows how to teach the events from the Civil War leading up to the Little Rock Nine. I believe this is a great source for those who don't know how to approach teaching this topic in schools and should be taught more thoroughly in all schools across the nation. The Little Rock Nine all received their diplomas and graduated from various colleges. The Little Rock Nine consisted of Melba Patillo, Carlotta Walls, Elizabeth Eckford, Ernest Green, Gloria Ray, Jefferson Thomas, Minnie Jean Brown, Terrence Roberts, and Thelma Mothershed. These are the faces that brought us change in the 1950s. They were the first step towards desegregating our schools and helping them become the integrated schools we have today.